Hi, I'm Mackenzie Fagan, and this is 112BK. Coming up, the story of a migrant mother who was separated from her son and relocated to Brooklyn after a harrowing experience at the border. A few months ago, you couldn't read, watch, or listen to the news without hearing about the Caravan, the oddly cheery name for the thousand-strong group of migrants who are making their way from Central America through Mexico to the U.S. border. After months of politicking and fear-mongering, the news cycle has largely moved on. But what happened to the people who made the long journey from their home countries? Today, we're joined by Kenia. Like thousands of other migrant mothers seeking asylum in the U.S., Kenia was held in a border detention center before she was called before a judge. After being sentenced to time served for illegally crossing the border, she returned to the detention center to learn that her 9-year-old son had been taken in her absence and sent to a home in Houston. She was told that if she asked any more questions, she would never see him again. Eventually, Kenia and her son were reunited, and a family in Brooklyn offered them a place to live. Kenia is now in the process of applying for asylum. Today, we're joined by Kim Chaix, whose family was sheltering her. Welcome to 112BK. Kate Chaltain is her lawyer, also here. Welcome to the show. And Kenia, thank you for joining us. Kate, maybe you can give us more background information. What is the situation on the ground like in Honduras right now, and why are so many people choosing to leave their home and make this incredibly difficult journey?
Honduras is one of the most dangerous places on earth to be female. And essentially, men can do whatever they want to a woman in Honduras with very little repercussions, if any repercussions at all. So a lot of the migrants asking for protection are women like Kenia who have been targeted for harm because of their gender and whose children have been targeted as a way to harm their mothers.
Kenia, maybe you can tell us a little bit about the journey.
Sí, salimos varias personas, pero nos venimos en bus, a veces caminamos, pero ya en un lugar donde ya no podíamos, pues no conocíamos nada, entonces hubieron personas que dijeron que si pagábamos, pues nos ayudaban.
Were you scared? I mean, this was such a huge undertaking. You've left behind everything in Honduras. You're in an unfamiliar territory and you're with your son. Can you tell me what that was like for you emotionally?
Todo muy difícil porque pues también dejé mi hija allá y pues mi familia. Nunca me imaginé que tenía que hacerlo, pero era eso o algo peor. Entonces tuve que salir y cuando sí venía, pero lo único que pensaba era que estaba poniendo a salvo a mi hijo y lo demás que podía sentir era algo que no era tan importante en ese momento como que mi hijo estuviera bien.
Kim, how did you come into contact with Kenia?
So Kate and I met because Kate has been doing another pro bono case for a separate issue related to my work. And when the policy of separation became a topic of news last summer, we were both outraged and we wanted to do something about it. I spoke Spanish but didn't have any legal background, and Kate obviously is an expert in immigration cases and asylum, but doesn't speak Spanish. So we said, well, let's raise some money and let's go down to the border.
With your powers combined, you are the most effective individual.
We were like, we will make one good volunteer.
We made one good volunteer between the two of us. We ended up volunteering with Raíces in Texas, and we were there for a week. And Kenia was our first case that was presented to us.
Kenia, you crossed the border, and then what happened? Were you taken into custody immediately?
Pues cruzamos y caminamos para encontrar que migración pues nos agarrara, porque eso nos dijeron de que teníamos que hacer. Entonces caminamos como creo que 40 minutos pues al encuentro de la patrulla y luego ellos nos llevaron a ese lugar que se llama la hielera.
And Kate, there are a few different types of facilities that that the CBP houses people in. One of them is called the Icebox.
Yes. So the icebox is a room that migrants are typically placed into for a number of hours, although we have certainly seen reports of some migrants being forced to stay in those rooms for 24 hours or more. And they are called it's called the icebox because it's so cold. So it's an incredibly cold room where people usually don't have appropriate clothing and are given sometimes those metal blankets that you see in pictures on the news.
And what about the dog kennel?
So the dog kennel is a different type of facility that is essentially a giant cage in a warehouse. And it's called the dog kennel because it looks like a dog kennel. And that's essentially what it is. It's just a human-sized cage.
It's got cyclone fencing to separate people.
And then there can be separations within the dog kennel as well.
Right. So, Kenia, you were brought to the Icebox, you and your son. Were you held together? And what were the conditions like in there?
Cuando llegamos, a mí me llevaron para un lugar, a un como pues hielera, le llaman un cuarto, y a él se lo llevaron para otro cuarto.
Did you know where he was going? What were you told?
Sí. Sí, yo iba con él de la mano, me lo llevaba, pero cuando íbamos entrando ya él me dijo, el niño se queda. Y yo le dije, ¿por qué? Porque él va a otro lado, él no se puede ir contigo. Entonces, pues me llevaron, no tuve otra opción que me llevaron a mí y a él se lo llevaron para otro lado. Yo vi que otro oficial se lo llevaba a él a otro lado.
Were you reunited with Michael soon thereafter?
Otro día en la mañana nos llevaron a otro lugar. Lo conocí como La Perrera. Ahí en ese lugar, nos fuimos juntos en el bus, pero cuando llegamos allá nos volvieron a separar.
Tell me about this second separation. So if I understand, you had to go before a judge, and when you were in court, you returned to find your son was gone. Is that right?
Pues nos llevaron ahí y a él se lo llevaron para un lugar, pero ahí no eran cuartos, sino que estaban como se podía ver, yo estaba en un lado y él estaba, pues yo no podía verlo, pues no estábamos tan lejos.
Were you told why they were separating mothers from their children?
No, solo no se los quitaron y ya.
You couldn't see him, but could you hear him? Could you talk to each other or call out to each other?
No, yo estaba encerrada en otro lugar y solamente salíamos cuando algún oficial la abría para ir a bañarse o cuando traían la comida, porque había que hacer una fila afuera, pero yo no podía moverme de ahí, ni él tampoco venir donde mí. Sí, no sé, no me acuerdo qué día fue, ni porque nosotros no sabíamos si era de noche, si era de día, no sé. Solo sé que en algún momento abrieron la puerta y entraron todos los niños, como habíamos un montón de mamás. Entonces los pusieron así alrededor de la malla, que se sentaran todos, y luego nos sacaron a nosotros, nos abrieron la puerta y nos dijeron que buscáramos a nuestros hijos, que saliéramos y viéramos si estaban los hijos de nosotras ahí, que teníamos como 10 minutos para platicar y preguntarles cómo estaban, hablar con ellos. Creo que era una forma como despedirnos de ellos, porque después de eso no. Yo lo volví a ver porque cuando me llevaron pasé por donde él estaba, pero creo que era como una forma de verlo ya por última vez.
Kenia, you went to go before a judge, and tell us what happened there and then when you returned.
Pues llegó un oficial y dijo que nos fuéramos, que me fuera. No nos llamaban a todas, me llamó a mí por mi nombre yo le dije que si Michael iba conmigo, me dijo, no, porque ya vas a regresar. Entonces, pero siempre quise pasar por donde él estaba y le dije que yo ya iba a regresar porque él me vio y me dijo, mami, ¿para dónde va? Entonces yo le dije, ya regreso y yo voy a regresar más al rato. Pero cuando yo salí de ese lugar, fue donde nos pusieron las cadenas en las manos y en los pies y en la cintura. Regresamos, nos fuimos para el juez y estuvimos casi todo el día ahí. Y cuando ya regresamos, en la tarde nos dijeron que los niños ya no estaban ahí y que nos iban a llevar a un lugar donde ellos estaban.
What were you told about where Michael was?
Solo nos dijeron que nos iban a llevar en un bus y que íbamos a ir donde estaban los niños. Me dijeron eso. Nos fuimos en el bus y cuando llegué allá, pues lo primero que hice fue preguntar dónde estaba él. Y me dijeron, aquí no hay niños. Los niños de ustedes no sabemos dónde están. Y no había, no sabíamos, yo no tenía idea dónde estaba él.
What were you thinking when you heard that?
Cuando me acuerdo es que ese momento fue bien difícil porque las personas que nos dijeron que los niños no estaban ahí lo hicieron de una forma muy fea, entonces fue muy difícil eso.
What did they say?
Porque la señora dijo que los niños los iban a regalar, que los iban a mandar lejos, que nosotras veníamos, que no queríamos a nuestros hijos porque veníamos a regalarlos acá. Sí, entonces luego de eso nos dan unos uniformes que hay que ponernos y nos llevaron a un lugar horrible.
At that time, did you think that you might not see your son again? Did you believe this woman when she said that he was being given away?
Lo peor que había venido a dejar a mi hijo acá y que no lo iba a volver a ver. Me sentía culpable, me sentía muy mal, muy mal.
She brought him here to save his life. And I also just want to point out that, she had tried to find safety in Honduras. Coming to the United States was not her first choice or something she really wanted to do. She had tried to be safe and to keep Michael safe in Honduras, and she couldn't. She was tracked by the person who was threatening them and who was harming her. So she gave up everything to bring him here.
Kenia, how were you and Michael eventually reunited?
Pues, no sé, como hubo tanta gente que estaba en contra de eso, pues es que como al tiempo, yo ni me acuerdo cuánto tiempo, creo que a las 2 semanas o 3 semanas yo supe de él, porque recibí una llamada y hablé con él. No sabía exactamente dónde estaba, pero sí hablé, creo que como 5 minutos con él.
What did he say on the call? Where was he? What had he been told? How was he doing?
Dijo que estaba bien. No sabía dónde estaba tampoco. Pero dijo que estaba bien, pero estaba llorando y me dijo que lo fuera a traer, que no quería estar más ahí.
And what happened after that, after you received the phone call? How did you end up tracking him down?
Un mes exacto estuvimos separados y ese día me dijeron que me iban a trasladar, pero no, me dijeron que yo no iba a ser reunificada todavía, pero cuando salimos de ahí nos llevaron a un lugar y cuando estaba ahí me dijeron que mi hijo estaba ahí. Entonces yo estaba feliz porque lo iba a ver. Y después a él lo sacaron para afuera y luego me sacaron a mí. Y cuando yo lo vi ahí sentado, fue como que me volvió todo el alma, el cuerpo y todo. Sentí una gran emoción de verlo sentado ahí, lo abracé. Y fue algo muy bonito, pero él estaba muy raro. Estaba como indiferente conmigo, estaba... Yo lo abracé y él no respondió nada.
Kate, do we know what happened? Like why he materialized all of a sudden? Why he was taken away in the first place? Is this common?
I mean, he was taken away as a way to punish her
Right,
for
right.
coming in. And you know, as we know now, this was the policy at the time of this particular administration. This has not been the policy beforehand. We don't know where he was. We only know that he was in Houston because he told us he was in Houston, but we have no information at all about what facility he was in, whose care he was under, what happened during the time he was away from her. He was given school lessons. We have a notebook with his notes, and we know he was given a bunch of immunizations, and that's all we know.
Do we know if he was given any other medications? I mean, I hear her describing him as indifferent, which could be a number of reasons.
Right. We don't.
Okay.
We don't. They were reunited because of the court order that came from the judge in California in the Ms. L litigation.
You both met Kenia shortly thereafter. Kim, can you tell us a little bit about that and then about how Kenia and Michael came to live with you and your family?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. So when Kate and I decided to volunteer with this group Races, at that time the policies were changing very rapidly. There was some confusion when we got into the facility. We could tell that the situation was very tense and delicate with the detention authorities at the detention facility. I think it was agreed that the pro bono lawyers would be allowed to see some prospective clients, and that is how we met Kenia. They were literally the first case that was presented to us as someone who was seeking legal assistance. The three of us, or maybe the four of us, I think Michael was with her too.
He was, but he was doing homework.
He was
at that point not really communicating. He was very upset.
Withdrawn,
Still.
yes.
Yeah.
And so we began learning about Kenia. It became apparent that she didn't really have any support in the U.S.
You know, she was able to tell us her story and what had happened to her, which I believe was only the second time she had ever spoken to anyone about it. And it became clear that she had a very complicated legal case because of where she was in her process. She'd already been ordered deported at that point because she'd been given her initial screening interview during the time she was separated from Michael, as had all of these other parents, and they had all failed.
And maybe, you know, I think that a lot of people don't quite understand the process by which asylum happens. So maybe I'll tell you what I know and you can tell me, you know, fill in holes for me.
Okay.
So, you know, people hear about the caravan, and then if you if you don't present yourself at a legal border entry, if you cross illegally and are taken into custody, then you're held in a detention center until a judge can see you. And then you're allowed, everybody has the right to make a claim for asylum, regardless of how they entered. But you have to establish credible fear.
Right.
And then after, if credible fear is established, if it's not established, deportation proceedings begin.
If it's not established, you're given what's called an expedited removal order. You can request review of that particular credible fear decision by an immigration judge. And so that review happens usually on the detained docket, the court docket where the detention center is. And in those cases, generally, if someone doesn't have representation, the decision is upheld by the judge. And then that expedited removal order becomes final, and the government then returns people.
If somebody does establish credible fear, then they sort of enter this waiting period where they have no legal right to work and are effectively on their own. And you hear these terrible stories of, you know, mothers with babies being given like one bottle of formula and like sent out into the wild to figure it out.
Yep.
So talk to me about the first credible fear interview. Kenia did not pass.
So Kenia did not pass the first credible fear interview, and it was not because they found her not to be credible. They believed what she said. However, there were a number of deficiencies in the interview. One, the translator who was doing the translation cut her off right at the beginning when she started to explain in detail what had happened to her and chastised her for giving so much detail. So that immediately shut her down. And so her understanding was that she should only give basically yes or no answers and only give information if it was specifically asked of her. Mm-hmm. Her interviewer did not ask her questions to elicit the appropriate information, the way that officers are trained to do. And at the time that she had her credible fear interview, there was a decision had come out from Attorney General Sessions, who had referred a very important case back to himself to issue a new decision on, basically because he didn't like the decision. And his decision on that case held essentially that claims involving domestic violence or persecution related to gang membership and claims under the Convention Against Torture likely wouldn't pass the credible fear stage. Credible fear is a very low bar. It's designed to be a low bar because it's just a threshold screening. And the assumption is someone is not going to have legal counsel, nor are they going to understand the complicated rules for asylum and the various levels of protection. So it's, can you establish that there's a reasonable possibility that you would be persecuted on account of a protected ground, or a reasonable possibility that it's more likely than not that you will be tortured? They found that she had not established that there was a reasonable possibility that she had been persecuted because of a protected ground, or that she would be tortured in the future. It became very clear to us, to me, after speaking with her, that this was incorrect, that she had been persecuted, that she was persecuted on account of a protected ground, and that she absolutely had been tortured and was risking torture upon return. And so we were at the point where we were trying to get the asylum office to agree to give her a new credible fear interview, which they did not agree to do.
But she eventually was granted another hearing.
She was eventually granted another hearing because of multiple other lawsuits that were filed, including a lawsuit where one of the allegations was that all of the mothers who were given their credible fear interviews during the time that they were separated from their children had not been provided with the appropriate disability accommodation, because all of the mothers were evaluated, were given forensic psychiatric evaluations from volunteer psychiatrists. And it, of course, it turned out that every single mother was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder because of the separation.
Right, right. So she got a new hearing. She passed her credible fear threshold and is now going through the formal process to seek asylum. Is that right?
That's correct.
So Kenia, you recently moved out of Kim's basement into an apartment of your own with Michael. Is that right?
Sí, así es.
And so what is life like for you right now?
Pues estamos muy bien. Pues con Michael estamos, gracias a Dios, pues nos sentimos seguros. Pues yo en lo personal me siento muy bien. Ahora mismo no estoy trabajando ni nada de eso, pero estamos bien.
One thing I think most people don't realize is that their suffering did not stop the moment that they were reunified with their children. In the case of Michael and Kenia, they were still held in detention for 4 months or so. And every night, they would go to bed not knowing if they would be deported the next day.
Or separated again.
Or separated again.
There were some parents that were re-separated.
Yeah, so that's one issue that is important to underline. The second issue is that we have an immigration crisis, and the crisis is that there is no policy of support, no assistance provided either at a federal level, a state level, or a municipal level for these asylum seekers who are released.
And Kenia, maybe the last question is for you. I think most Americans have heard about the caravan, but all they know is that it's thousands of people who've made their way across Mexico to the border. I don't think they know the human stories behind it. And I'm curious about if you have anything you want to say to people who may not have the understanding of why someone would undertake that journey.
Pues yo creo que nadie conoce el por qué una persona toma la decisión de dejar toda su vida atrás. Y creo que si la gente se detuviera a ver un poquito del sacrificio y lo que uno, bueno, en mi caso, dejar mi familia, dejar mi hija y pues toda mi vida allá. Y acá pues uno no tiene nada y viene a comenzar casi de la nada. Entonces yo creo que no sé qué decir. Pues que lo deja prácticamente todo. Pero yo sé y yo pude confirmar y he podido confirmar que aquí en este lugar, aquí en este país, hay mucha gente buena, mucha gente que no lo deja a uno, porque yo pues los encontré a ustedes y yo creo que si no hubiese sido así, no sé dónde estuviera en este momento. Así como el presidente pues no actuó de buena forma separándonos, y creo que a mucha gente pues le hizo daño con la separación. Pues a pesar de eso creo que son más los buenos que los malos. Y pues yo puedo decir ahora que sí, que hay mucha gente buena, porque gracias a eso nosotras nos quedamos cuando ya había una orden de un juez que nosotros íbamos a ser devueltas al país. Pero yo creo que pudo más lo bueno que lo malo. Y pues la gente se viene con, creo yo, hay mucha gente que viene con mi caso huyendo, pero hay mucha, de cualquier forma están huyendo, tanto como de una amenaza o como de una necesidad, de hambre, porque no hay trabajo, porque por muchas cosas, por muchas razones nadie se viene de gusto y deja todo atrás, todo, porque aquí, pues aquí no hay nada, aquí se comienza de cero.
Well, I want to thank you all for coming on the show today. Kenia, thank you so much for sharing your story. We'll also include a link to the GoFundMe page in the episode description so people can find that there. And Kim and Kate, thank you so much for being here as well.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.